Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Three Wide in the Middle, your home for all things racing with me, Thomas Brandon, and I'm flying solo this week. The last couple weeks have just been, oh my God, it's just been chaos. Um, Last week, Keith and I actually recorded about an hour and 10 minutes of the podcast. Well, we thought we recorded an hour and 10 minutes of the podcast. What had happened was I had it recording and we went to take a break. And when I got back from our break, which was only like 2 minutes, I could see that the record light was on, but the time on the bottom of the computer screen that showed how much had actually recorded said 0. And it's like, well, how is this recording, but it says 0? That doesn't make any sense. And so I start looking into it, and we had nothing. We didn't record anything. We had basically sat there and talked for an hour plus. Nothing got recorded, and we were getting ready. We were wrapping up the show, and then I had to go, and so it was like, crap. Well, I guess we're not gonna have a pod this week. So, yeah, that's what happened last week. Complete nightmare. This week, we were supposed to do it, record it yesterday. Stuff that I was supposed to do yesterday in the glass business ended up getting pushed to today, and we didn't get it done yesterday. It's just oh my God, it's just been crazy these last few weeks, just crazy. So yeah, Keith's not with me. I promise you, we're trying to get this figured out, because the scheduling stuff and how much I'm working, it's been maddening. I don't know how else to put it. It's just maddening. And for somebody like myself who works as much as I do, and then when it comes to doing other stuff, right, like this pod or the things that I like really want to do, and then I don't have time for it, it just drives me nuts. So yeah, flying solo this week. We've only got a couple of things that we're gonna really dive into and cover, just because the news out there, not a whole lot happening in terms of the racing world. We got things ramping up, you know what I mean? Obviously, when we look at the when we look at the dirt racing schedules, we know that still not a whole lot going on. Last weekend we had, what was it, one race that got done, and then the other one got canceled. It's just the weather has just been crazy. So, as you guys know, rain coming in, storms. We had a week of, I want to say it was 75 degrees, and for like 5 days straight, and then all of a sudden it was in the 50s and raining, like within 24 hours. Yesterday it was sunny all the way up until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Then it started raining. The day before, it was cold, wet, and rainy the entire day. The day before that, 77 degrees and sunny. Like it's nuts. It's just nuts. And recently, it seems like it's only getting wet and rainy on race days, which really sucks, because the last couple races out here have been rained out, and it's just a bummer. So, anyways, let's dive into the news. So, big news on the dirt late model tire doping suspension penalty issue, whatever you want to call it. If you remember, last week's episode, we talked about it, and of course it didn't get posted because it didn't get recorded, right? So last week I had talked about the penalties. If you remember, the penalties were really stiff, and these guys were going to miss, like, it was 30 days or 4 races. I can't remember the wording that was used, but it was something along the lines of 30 days or 4 races, or whichever one happens first, I think is the way that it was worded. Either way, it was a very stiff penalty. Essentially, what it did was it made it to where those guys, Pierce and Bronson in particular, because they are World of Outlaws, they're actually Platinum Card members, they were not going to be competing for a championship. Their season was basically done before it ever really got going. Now, they had an appeal, and the appeals board basically adjusted the penalty. Okay. And the findings were upheld, but the penalties were adjusted. So we look here at this quick little report on the World of Outlaws website. It says that the board adjusts the impact to penalize drivers. All three are eligible to race pending fines. It says that the World Racing Group Appeals Commission, comprised of independent industry personnel, convened on Tuesday, March 26, to hear separate appeals from Bobby Pierce, Devin Moran, and Kyle Bronson regarding penalties issued to them for tires used in competition that did not conform to the Hoosier Racing tire benchmark in February at Volusia Speedway Park. For those of you who have not been following this, the tire actually, this was not something where the tire just tested softer than, the normal, whatever those tires are now, DH15, whatever the heck they label them as now. This wasn't that. This was something chemically that they had found in the tire, where they take a tire sample, they send it off to a lab, and then they look at it chemically, and they're like, hey, this was chemically altered. Okay. There are a ton of ways to do this. You could literally go to Amazon and buy stuff to dope your tires with. Like, you really can. I mean, it's insane. We did it. I one of the teams that I worked on back in the day, we did this to our tires on the midget side of things. For a couple of asphalt races, we did this, and we won a race with them. We won a race. We got another time we got a podium, and then the third race we lost hard, lost bad, and not because we got caught, but because we had pushed it too far. What we were doing was, and I can't remember if I covered this last week in this episode. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but essentially, I'll keep this short. What you did was it was a chemical. It smelled like freaking paint thinner. Like, the stuff stinks. And you could roll it on with the paint roller. Okay, you would roll it on the tire. So basically, you just kind of spin the tire. You want it to be mounted. You spin the tire, roll it on with the paint roller, and you would do that a few times throughout the day. You do it, let it sit, do it, let it sit, do it, let it sit. Or what you would do is you would basically roll it on, and as you're rolling it on, you wrap it with saran wrap. And so it's basically holding that can, because when you would roll it on with the paint roller, some of it would absorb and others would drip off. You'd have a drip pan underneath it. Then you would basically reuse that stuff. You would keep rolling that stuff on. Or you would wrap it in saran wrap, and it would hold that stuff on there, and you would keep it on there for like a day. And it does like 24 hours or something like that. And you would take it off. And what it did is it made the tires softer. They would have more grip, but they would also last longer. And this was really what we were after. We weren't so much after obviously the having increased grip. Don't get me wrong. That was a wanted bonus, right? That was a byproduct of what we were trying to accomplish. We wanted more length out of the tire. That was our number one goal, was to get more laps out of the tire. Well, what had happened is first race we used it, they were great. We won. Second race, we had new tires again, did this and ran really, really well. Well, this stuff had claimed that you could use it on used tires, and it would get more life out of them, bring them back to life, get more life, and they'll be just as good as new. That was a lie. That was false. And we tried that. When the tires finally did fall off, they fell off hard, really hard. It was only like a 50 lap race, but these tires had already had like 70 laps on them or something like that, and by the time we get halfway through the race, these things, they've like lost all grip. It was insane. And so whether the tires started breaking down, because it was really the rear, specifically the right rear. And so whether these tires started like breaking down because of what we were putting on them, or we just, we tried pushing our luck, right, with tires that had already been raced on and already had, quite a bit of wear on them, and we just couldn't, I don't know, but they fell off hard, and we did not have a good race. All right. So that was what it was like 20 years ago. That stuff was really hard to get. You could not just, it wasn't like something you could just like walk into, you didn't just walk into a speed shop and buy that. Okay. Like that was stuff that you weren't supposed to have. And, and if you did have it, right, you better be in a racing series that it was okay for, that type of thing. And for us, it was not okay. Nowadays, you can literally go on Amazon and you can order this stuff. You can have it sent to your door and boom, you can just put it on. All right. So it's very difficult to prevent people from using it. And this is where I understand the World of Outlaws, right? World Racing Group. This is where I understand their desire to basically say, hey, look, you guys cheated. You guys broke the rules. You did something you're not supposed to do. And so, yeah, we're going to give you this massive penalty. We're going to give you a quote unquote death sentence. And that's really the way that it was looked at. Was, hey man, these guys' season is done before it even started. Now, Moran was not running the Outlaws schedule, the full Outlaw schedule. He was not a platinum member. But Bronson and Pierce, like they were. And they were, Bobby Pierce, right, defending World of Outlaws champion, he basically had zero shot at defending his title after this penalty was going to be upheld. So the appeals commission weighed the statements and the owners during the hearings on Tuesday, and they adjusted the penalty. So basically what happened is this. Pierce's penalty is going to be the loss of purse and prize money. So he got $4,000 purse, and then he also got $3,000 in the Gator Championship winnings. Okay. He also learns. Why would I say learns? He also loses his points earned in that race, which was 144 points. And then he has an additional fine of $2,000 plus a $400 fee for the tire analysis. Okay, so that's for Bobby Pierce. Now, once he pays that, once he ponies up that money, he can go back racing. He can go back racing. And that's a big deal. Now, the late models don't have anything on the schedule for another couple weeks. I think the next World of Outlaws late model race is the Illini 100. Yeah, it's the Illini 100, and April 11th is when that starts. So they got a ways to go in terms of racing. Now, they did have a race this last weekend on the 23rd that they were supposed to be running at Thunder Hill, which was rained out. Okay. So, like, in terms of them missing stuff, right? Like, really being penalized and like missing races and losing out, that's not the case anymore. Okay. This penalty being lightened has changed that, which is a big deal. So now Bobby Pierce can actually still make a legitimate run for the championship. Same thing with Kyle Bronson. Now, Bronson's penalty, if we look here, Bronson's penalty basically was adjusted to a loss of purse money, which is $2,000, a $1,000 fine, and a tire analysis fee of $400. All right. Devin Moran, who is not a platinum member, but he was still suspended. Devin Moran was suspended from dirt car competition. So dirt car racing late model series event was adjusted. His penalty for that was adjusted to a loss of purse and prize money. It was $7,000 for him. If you remember, he won on the 16th, I believe is what it was. So Moran lost $7,000 in purse, $2,000 in Gator Championship winnings. He had a $1,000 fine as well, plus a tire analysis fee of $400. So Moran's got to put up $10,400. Pierce, $9,400. And then Bronson's is $3,400. But once those guys pay that, they're back to racing. And this brings up an interesting conversation in terms of penalties. And what is too much? How harsh is too harsh when we look at penalties in racing? Now, you guys know Keith and I's thought process on this when it comes to racing, whether it's NASCAR or even on the dirt side of things, right? But there's a fine line between cheating and being innovative. And this is always the thing that people get confused on, or where the arguments come up, right? When I talked about what I was doing, 20 plus years ago, soaking tires, that is 100% flat out cheating. Okay, that is cheating. All right, there's rules against that. The rules are written plain and simple. You are not supposed to be doing that. We did it, and we got away with it, right? We got away with it. Point blank, end of story. Doesn't make it right. It's against the rules. I can sit there and I can justify it and argue it and say, hey, look, there's people out there all the time breaking rules, getting away with it, whatever. It was more than 20 years ago, whatever. Then you have being innovative. When we talk about being innovative, what are we talking about? We're talking about not breaking rules, but creating new ones, okay? Where you find a rule in the rule book and you look at it and you say, hey, they don't talk about this here, right? They're not covering this. So we can push the envelope here, right? So if they give something that's really vague in terms of, dimensions, rules, boundaries, whatever it is you as a builder, designer, crew chief, fabricator to find those holes and maximize what you can get out of it. You look at stuff like this in NASCAR, it happens all the time. Not so much anymore, but take, for example, when we saw the cars all skewed out and all rotate, right? They're going down the straightaway and the car's crooked. Or you've got like the Gen 6 car, right? Where you got one side flat, the other side's protruded out for side force. These are all examples of finding holes in the rule books and pushing that envelope until NASCAR says, hey, you can't cross this, or whoever the governing body is, right? If sprint car teams could, right? If there was a rule that just says you could run a wing and it has to be shaped like this. Other than that, dimensions, what you could do, whatever, you would see all kinds of shit strapped to the tops of those sprint cars. You would. All right. So that's the difference. When you are doping tires, when you are straight up altering the chemical compounds in a tire, that is cheating. That's cheating. There's no other way around it. And the question is how harsh is too harsh? Because that's what I've heard a lot of people say. I've heard a lot of people say, look, they made a mistake, right? Punish them, but don't end their season. I get that. I do. And the question is the penalty that these guys got, right? These drivers, these teams, the penalties that they got, is it enough to detour others from attempting the same thing? Because that's ultimately what a penalty is for. A penalty is no more than a deterrent. It is to put that seed in your mind that, hey, you broke the rules. This is your punishment. If you try this again, I want you to remember this punishment, because you will get this and then some, right? It'll be this plus more. So that is the whole purpose of a penalty. Being suspended for a month, right? Missing all them races where you've not only lost that money, but you're missing out on potential money. Remember, these drivers, okay, these guys are not, they're not on NASCAR contracts. These guys make a percentage of their purse. That's it, right? They might have some bonuses or something like that. Like Bobby Pierce might be on a salary, maybe on a salary. And if it is, it's probably small. For the most part, these guys you're talking a percentage. That's what they're making, is a percentage of the winnings. So if they're not racing, they're not earning money. Now, if you say, hey, you lost all this money and you're going to miss out on the next 4 races, right? 30 days. That's a huge penalty. Not only that, you're telling them, dude, your year is screwed. You got no shot at that points fund. None. because you done blown it. So was that too harsh? That's the question. I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. And it's only time will tell, because if we don't see teams attempting this, then this worked, right? The penalty worked. Making an example of them worked. And World Racing Group showed what they can do. Now, it was ultimately the appeals board who lightened that penalty, but there's no guarantee that'll happen again. And if somebody does get popped for this again, penalties might be upheld. So there's a lot of people out there being like, well, hey, look, man, they shouldn't have lightened the penalty. These guys should have been made examples of. They should have ruined their season. And there's other people like, hey, look, man, what are we doing? Like, we shouldn't crush their entire season. Yes, they screwed up. Yes, they cheated. Yes, they made mistakes. But what happened to, punishment, move on, right? Live, let live, learn, move on, forgive. I don't know what the right answer is. What I do know is that what they got now in terms of a penalty is much lighter than what they had been given. And for especially Bobby Pierce and Kyle Bronson with the Outlaws, it saved their seasons. And now we'll have to watch really closely the rest of the year to see whether or not any other teams will attempt to dope their tires, or was this penalty enough of a deterrent? All right, so last week we had the NASCAR Cup Series, all the divisions, truck, Xfinity, and Cup were all at COTA. COTA, it was a pretty good race. I gotta admit, I saw very little of the truck race. I can't think of I really can't think of something that interests me less than NASCAR trucks on a road course. I have zero desire to watch the NASCAR trucks in a road course. I don't care. I just don't. I know that's sad. Now the Xfinity race, on the other hand, I did enjoy that. I thought the Xfinity race was really good. If you looked at, especially the battle at the end there between SVG, Hill, and Larson, that was one of the. I thought what Larson did was brilliant, man. I really did. To me, that showed his maturity as a driver. So Larson pits, and first of all, one of the advantages that Kyle Larson has in these races when he does these Xfinity races, which he doesn't do a lot of them, but one of the advantages that he has is the fact that he's there to win, right? He's not doing points. He doesn't care about points. They're not, trying to get the best out of their day. They are there for one thing and one thing only: win. So when you're running in the top 5 and you have a chance to come in and get tires, right? Put on new tires with the hopes that, hey, now, more people are going to come in and get tires. We'll be able to be the first ones out on new tires. Maybe we'll be in the top. We can restart in the top 10. They had 5-6 laps to go. COTA is it's like a 3-mile track. It's huge. So that's an eternity at a track like that. You're on new tires and you got other people on old tires. Even if it's only, a half a dozen lap difference, that's a big deal on a track like that, especially with the Xfinity cars. So you got Larson comes out and not as many cars pitted. I think they were thinking more cars would come into pit, and they didn't. And so Larson comes out. He's basically in the back. Well, he works his way up. Now, we had a bunch of restarts, right? We had a bunch of these overtimes and green, white checkers, all that good stuff. Finally, we get the last one. It's Hill and SVG. Now, Hill had already run SVG wide. You knew, or I should say, I do, and I imagine if you had been watching the race, you knew as well, because this wasn't a secret. Okay, this was not a secret. Suarez was even saying it. He was like, he's gonna get him here, and in the booth, him and what was it, Logano, I think. And so, like, they had been saying, he's gonna get him here, he's gonna get him here, and SVG got him, and he got into the back and pushed him right out of the way, right up the track, smashed his nose in. Like, he didn't just nudge him, he moved him and opened the door. Larson knew that those guys were going to do that. You could just tell he was waiting right there. He was like a vulture waiting for two animals to kill themselves so he could just swoop in and grab their carcasses. Like, I know that's graphic, but like, that's what it was. It was like he just sat there being like, all right, these two are going to knock each other out, and I'm going to just go by and win the race. I mean, he could have had a banner on his car that said it. Like, that's how obvious it seemed at the time. And sure enough, SVG moves Hill out the way. Those two are beating and banging. Larson goes right around, boom, gets the lead, wins the race, and it was incredible. The Xfinity race was actually really, really good. Watching SVG in those cars is really impressive. He was definitely fast the whole day. You know, you could tell early on him and Allmendinger were the cream of the crop. I think Larson was fast, but if we were looking at just straight speed, I don't think the 5 car could have beat SVG or Allmendinger just in terms of racing, right? If it was those three, all things considered equal, 5-lap shootout, I don't think Larson's beaten, those guys. He might get in front of one of them, right? Just based on his sheer raw ability. But Allmendinger and SVG to me looked like the cream of the crop. So for one of them not to win the race was pretty shocking, because those two had really shown themselves to kind of be the class of the field. So Larson gets to win. Hats off to him. I mean, we already know how good the dude is. It's ridiculous. All right. And that sets the stage for the Cup race on Sunday. And Willie B does it again. And Byron is the dude's really starting to make a name for himself. Now, keep in mind, he won 6 races last year. Let's not pretend like we didn't already know who this guy was. But what he's able to do and the way that he is able to win is impressive. It is really impressive. It reminds me a lot of Jeff Gordon, when Jeff Gordon first started really breaking out. Now, the difference, obviously, because there is some differences. One of the biggest differences is the fact that when Jeff Gordon was on his run, his tear with Ray Evernham was a genius innovator, and Jeff Gordon was a phenom talent. And Gordon, there was a lot of races where they were just flat better, faster than everybody. And it wasn't even close. Byron's got those races, but for the most part, what these guys do is they just consistently put themselves in a winning position. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen, because you talk about it all the time in racing, right? Whenever you're talking about, and it doesn't matter if you're talking real life racing, sim racing, go-karts, F1, NASCAR, sprint cars, midgets, it does not matter. It's the same principles. You say it all the time to drivers. Look, man, finish the race. Work on getting top 10s when they're getting top 10s. Work on getting top 5s when they're getting top 5s. Hey, man, put it on the podium. Work on running in the top 3. If you do that, the wins will come. In NASCAR, it's, man, be up there on around the top 5s, and you do that consistently, those wins are going to come. You're going to get those opportunities. And that is what Byron has done. It has been absolutely incredible watching what this guy is doing. He's winning on everything. Okay? He's winning on everything. That's the thing. He just won at COTA. He wins short tracks, big tracks, intermediates, whatever, you name it, he wins at it. And it's truly impressive, because I think we are seeing something that is the beginning of something great. I really do. 2 weeks ago, I talked about Christopher Bell, right? And I said, if you don't know, now you know. Okay. Everyone overlooks Christopher Bell. They haven't paid attention to him. Still, to this day, Christopher Bell, I think, is going to be one of those guys who's never going to get the credit that he deserves, which is sad because the dude is incredible. Incredible. I've said it before. I will say it again. If I had to pick a driver, right, in terms of who to start my racing venture with, Christopher Bell is on my short list of people for everything. NASCAR, dirt racing, whatever, right? Christopher Bell's on the short list. So I think we're going to see big seasons out of both Byron and Bell. But it's really sad because Byron's run is so good that it's overshadowed, what some of the other drivers have done. Largely his teammate, Alex Bowman, once again had another really good race. He finished 4th, another top 5 for Alex Bowman. If you look at where Bowman is right now, if I could find it in the points, Bowman is 11th, but he's had 3 top 5s and 3 top 10s. Right? So he hasn't been up there leading laps. He hasn't been winning stages. But if you consider where he was at the end of last year to this year, there was a lot of people coming into this season like, hey, Bowman, I don't know about this guy. And he's actually been doing much, much better. I don't think people realize how long it takes to come back from a major injury when you miss time, especially with these cars now. I think there's a lot to that. Chase Elliott, another one. Chase Elliott is 9th in the points. He has not been a world beater by any stretch of the means. He's got 1 top 10, I think. He finished 15th? 16th at COTA. Remember when Chase Elliott was considered like the best road racer on the Cup Series? Remember that? Like, in terms of, he wasn't the road course ringer, but was like the best road racer. And it's funny because Chase Elliott did a interview on the Dale Jr. Download, and I thought it was really insightful because Chase Elliott talked about how in the beginning with the next gen car, he thought that he was able to just do so well because everybody else didn't really have it figured out yet. And now he's struggling with this car. And he was saying that him and Kyle Busch they're kind of struggling with the same thing. They're having the same types of problems. And this car, he thinks this car is a big reason for that. And so he's having to kind of relearn how to drive. And when you have a major injury like he had with his leg, when you have shoulder surgery, he had shoulder surgery in the offseason. I want to say he had a torn labrum, which if you don't know what that is, that's like the cartilage inside your shoulder. I have issues with my shoulders, specifically my left shoulder. It's been bothering me now for quite a while, and it hurts really, really bad. It goes up into my neck. I also have a messed up neck, but it goes up into my neck. I sim race for a living. I've talked about this before, and that's sim racing. I can't imagine what it's like to drive an actual Cup car with shoulder issues. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that those guys have been dealing with, and we've seen like this separation just in Hendrick with the 5 car and the 24 car, where they've kind of separated themselves from the 9 and the 48, which is crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about because if you remember, it wasn't very long ago, Chase Elliott was the man in this car. And last year at this time, before his injury, Alex Bowman was leading the points. So we've seen this massive change and split. And when I say split, I don't mean like they're fighting or negative or anything like that, but just in terms of the results at Hendrick. And coming into this year, it was a big question mark. it's been good to see Bowman have some good runs here. Yes, he has not, got a win yet, but he's putting himself in the position. And that, like I just said a few minutes ago, is key. Just like with Byron, get yourself in those top fives. Those wins will ultimately come. And that's what we're seeing with Bowman. So hopefully he can pop one off here soon. Hopefully Elliott can as well. Looking at the rest of the field, Ty Gibbs with another incredible run. He's just watch out for Ty Gibbs this year. He's definitely going to get a win this year. Bowman fourth, Reddick by pick in the NASCAR Pick'em finished fifth. Allmendinger sixth, Chastain seventh, Buescher eighth, Kyle Busch, who we were just talking about, ninth, Martin Truex Jr. in 10th. If we look at the Cup Series standings right now, Truex is in the lead, followed by Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Tyler Reddick. That's your top 10. And then 11 to 16, you got Bowman, Buescher, Busch, Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, and Brad Keselowski's got that 16th and final spot right now. Obviously, still really early in the season, but that is how things are looking in the Cup Series. If we take a look here, we've got Richmond coming up this week, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Richmond's one of those tracks. I used to love Richmond. Not the biggest fan of it anymore. I got to be honest, with this new car, Richmond has kind of sucked. So we'll see what kind of racing we get. But I want to cover, since Keith isn't here, we can't be making our NASCAR pick'em. We'll get our selections in, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. What I'm calling the Handicapper's Corner. And so here, when we come back from the break, we're going to be taking a look at the odds. I'm going to be giving you who I think is the best bet in terms of your payoff, and then also who do I actually think has a good shot to get the win this weekend at Richmond. So stick around. All right, so this is what I'm calling Handicapper's Corner. We're going to take a look at some of the betting odds here for the NASCAR race at Richmond. This was something I wanted to start doing this year just because, like I mentioned a minute ago, I used to handicap sports. Now, I was never big into the racing stuff, but back then when I was doing it, NASCAR wasn't something you really bet on. You didn't really bet on racing. The only type of racing you would bet on is like horses at the track, right? Or dogs. If you went to like a dog racing track. So now we've got a lot of information, but not only that, you have a lot of betting options, which is key because when you're making bets, this is something that people don't understand about betting. I learned this really early. You're not looking for a bunch of stuff to bet on. It's not volume. You are looking for like 1 or 2 opportunities a week, right? Take the NFL, for example. And the NFL is by far the hardest market to bet. It's not even close. It's the most money out there. The odds makers spend the most time figuring it out. The information, it's tough. So when I would do it, I would spend a full week, because I used to do it all by hand, and then I created spreadsheets and stuff that did it for me. But I would spend a week calculating just the numbers on the NFL matchups. Okay. So I had all these formulas that I used that would calculate their points scored and who they played, and it weighed it and did all these different things. And it would give me a projected total for who I thought who was going to win, who was going to lose, and what the score was going to be. Right. So I could use that for over under bets, sides, all that stuff. Then I created spreadsheets that did all that for me. Now, I would spend that whole week doing that. And when it would come time to bet, right, I would look for 1, 2, maybe 3 opportunities. Now, this was even 10 years ago, which was quite a while ago in terms of betting. It wasn't like it is today where everybody's got a sports book and everybody, there's sports betting everywhere. Back then, when I would do it, you had a couple of options. You couldn't bet on every single player and how many yards they were going to go over, under, and how many, touchdowns, all that stuff like that. You had sides, you had over unders, you had maybe some halftime bets. That was about it. Well, you're looking for these really good opportunities. And keep in mind, a good opportunity might be in the NFL, might be like a 2-point difference. So for example, if I see that we'll use the Chiefs and the 49ers because they played in the Super Bowl this year. If I have the Chiefs playing the 49ers and I have the Chiefs winning the game by 3 points, let's say I'm projecting using my numbers and stats and data the way that I see it, I have the Chiefs winning 27-24. And Vegas, they have the Niners as a 1-point favorite. So they have the Niners -1. I have the Chiefs -3. So what does that mean? That means that I can bet on the Chiefs and I could actually get 3 points. Right? Or excuse me, I could actually get 1 point in terms of the bet. But remember, I've got them being 3 points ahead. So that's 4 points of value. In the NFL, that's huge, right? If you are using reliable systems, because essentially what you're doing is you are looking for an edge and you are trying to exploit it. It's the same thing in financial markets for people who do like pattern trading or high frequency trading, anything like that. You're looking for an edge and then you exploit that edge over and over and over again. It's the same thing with betting, all right? Now, in NASCAR, it's a little bit different, but now when it comes to betting, it's not just betting like, hey, who's going to win the race, right? Or who's going to be in the top 3. There's a lot of really good opportunities for betting. So you've got the outright winner. So basically, who's going to win the race? You can bet who's going to be top 3, top 5, top 10, top 20. And then you can also do matchups. And matchups are really, really good because it's basically one driver against another. And I really like these. So we're going to take a look here at a couple of what I consider good opportunities. Keep in mind, I'm not telling you to bet this. I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that. You do this at your own. Keep in mind, if you are somewhere that you can't even do this legally, it's on you. All right. We're just talking about this for fun. Okay. So coming into the race, first of all, the favorites to win the race in terms of odds are Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Ty Gibbs, and then Kyle Larson. Those are your top 5 in terms of odds. It should be no surprise that the first 4 are Gibbs drivers, okay? They've all shown themselves to be very, very good at not only Richmond, but these types of tracks. We know the Toyotas were obviously good when we watched them at Phoenix, Bristol. So Richmond, yes, it's a different thing, but it's also kind of similar. And that's where it gets tough. So if you are looking at picking a winner, to me, you could sit and you'd be like, well, look, I mean, Truex, Bell, Hamlin, those guys have been so good. Gibbs has been really good. And, I could get Ty Gibbs 9-1 plus 900, which means if you bet 100 and he wins, you get 900. Gibbs to me is the cutoff. I wouldn't do Bell, Hamlin, Truex. It's not a good enough payout. Think about how many different things have to go your way to win a race. It doesn't just always go to the fastest driver. You know what I mean? It's so many things that got to happen. So for me, Gibbs, he's kind of the cutoff. Anything longer than that, I'm not taking it. In terms of what I would consider good bets for this race in terms of outright winners, to me, I really like Ryan Blaney at plus 2,200. Blaney is somebody who has shown himself to be good on these types of tracks. If you look at what Blaney did, obviously he runs really well at Phoenix, but also what he's done at Richmond since 2021. Blaney has an average finish of 13th. He's got 3 top 10s in 6 races. No, he doesn't have the wins there historically, but he's been really good on the short tracks lately. And when you look at a 22-1 payout, that is a good payout in my eyes. Another one would be Chastain. Anytime I can get Ross Chastain at 22-1, I just think that's a good bet. Chastain's one of the, because keep in mind, if you're going to be doing outright winners like this, you want to find 3 or 4 bets, right? You're looking to do, $10 on 3 or 4 different people, and then you're hoping one of them hits, right? Because these are such long odds. That's why you want to play longer odds. Now, if we look at our top 5 and top 10 bets, because to me, top three is kind of like picking an outright winner, and you're getting decent odds, but not getting as good. So, for example, let's just take the top 4 that we talked about a minute ago in terms of outright winners. If we look at what it was for an outright winner, Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin were both plus 500. Truex Jr. is plus 650. Ty Gibbs is plus 900. That's to win the race, okay? If you look at them to finish in the top 3, Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell are plus 135. So think about that in terms of a positional difference and a payout, right? Plus 175 for Truex, plus 275 for Gibbs. So you are losing. If you look at someone like Ty Gibbs, to finish, he's got to finish first, second, and third, and he'll get that payout of plus 275. But if he wins, it's plus 900. So you have to really consider, like, okay, hey, look, man, if this guy wins, I get this. But if he finishes in the top 3, which is definitely easier, we talked about how hard it is to win these races, finishes in the top 3, I can still get plus 275. This is where you can start looking at kind of covering where, hey, we're going to go for a long shot bet here, but I'm also want to see if this guy can score a top 3, a top 5. Because if you're going to bet on somebody to win the race, they got to obviously score a top 5. They got to score, they got to be running up front. So for me, the top 3 bets, I don't really like those. Top 5 bets, though, I think this is where you could start seeing good returns in terms of betting and making, getting some money back, earning some money on those bets. If you look at the best top 5 payouts for this week, Hamlin, Bell, and Truex are all negative. Meaning you have to bet for Denny Hamlin to finish in the top 5. You have to bet $129 to win 100. No, thank you. Stay away from that. Ty Gibbs is the first positive, and that's plus 140. So that's not very good, right? When you start looking at the top 5s, now you want to start really looking down further. This is where I think Blaney would be a really good bet. Chastain, once again, Chastain's plus 350, Blaney's plus 280. If you look at the drivers and how they've done here, keep in mind Denny Hamlin has an average finish of 5.2 at Richmond since February 2021. Truex has an average finish of 5.8. Bell, 6.5. Okay. Kyle Busch has an average finish of 8.7. So that's somebody to keep an eye on. Also, keep in mind, someone we haven't talked about and I think could be a very good bet this week at Richmond is Josh Berry. Josh Berry is plus 1,200 to score a top 5. That's huge. If you look at Josh Berry in terms of a top 10, it's plus 300. To me, I think Berry could very easily run in the top 5. Josh Berry's he's only got one race at Richmond in the Cup Series since 2021, and he scored a top 5. He finished second, right? So, like, he can drive. We know he's good on the short tracks, and I do think Stuart Haas has figured some stuff out. They've shown speed. So Josh Berry is somebody I would definitely keep an eye on, and someone that I really like in terms of a top 5 payout. Top 10, not so much, but top 5, because the odds are just not favorable. You get him for the top 5, and you've got yourselves, plus 2,200 or something like that. Where top 5, plus 1,200. Top 5, it's only like plus 200. So, whatever. All right, last thing we got is the matchups, and this is my favorite because now you are actually pitting drivers against each other, and this is where you can find discrepancies. Now, keep in mind, this is like NFL betting, where you're betting against, putting team against team. Okay. If we look at the best matchups, in my opinion, okay, first of all, obviously the most intriguing is you got Martin Truex against Ty Gibbs. That's obviously a really good one. Brad Keselowski against Chris Buescher, really good. You'll see this a lot with these matchups where it's going to actually be teammates against each other. Kyle Larson versus William Byron, Denny Hamlin versus Christopher Bell, Joey Logano against Ryan Blaney, right? So you're going to see that a lot because that it's very car dependent, right? These guys are going to have very similar cars. So now it's putting it on the driver. That's why I like these bets a lot, because you're controlling variables. If you look at, let's take Logano and Blaney. Blaney's at minus 103. Logano's at minus 129. That means to win $100 with Logano, you'd have to bet 129. To win $100 with Blaney, you have to bet 103. All right. If we look at their averages, we talked about a minute ago, Blaney has led 5.5% of the laps that he's ran there. He's got 3 top 10s in 6 races. His average finish is 13th. Joey Logano, his average finish is 7th. But, and this is why I like this bet this week, how well has Logano done this year? Logano has, let's not act like Logano's lighting the world on fire, folks. He has not had a very good season so far. He could turn things around at Richmond. But if you look at just where he's running compared to where Blaney's running, I don't even think it's a contest. Logano's 22nd in points. He's had 2 DNFs. He's had only 1 top 10. He has not looked good at all. Where Blaney, on the other hand, defending champ, Blaney's had a DNF and he's still 3rd in points. He's got a stage win. He's got 3 top 10s, 3 top 5s. He's just looked solid this year. And on the shorter tracks, he's been really, really good. So to me, I really like that. I really like Blaney over Logano. And that would be probably my bet of the week in terms of matchups, would be Blaney over Logano. So just some stuff to think about. Because I'm flying solo this week again, I wanted to kind of do something a little bit different since Keith and I don't have our NASCAR pick'em to do. But so I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll look at this throughout the year. We'll do the handicappers corner. So check out the odds and stuff like that. But you guys, that's going to do it all for this week's show. A little bit different episode, like I said, since I'm by myself this week, but I got to actually get going to my other job and get to work. So we're going to wrap it up right here. So thank you very much, as always, for joining me. Please continue to download, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you do that, we will be back to do this all over again. So enjoy the Easter holiday. Enjoy the racing this weekend. And I will be back to see you guys all again next week. And until then, as always, take care.